Hey guys, I'm doing well today. So yeah, this is episode 16 of the Rugby Recap. This is going to be our World Cup review for the matches we just saw within round two of this Rugby World Cup. First of all, how are you doing?
I'm doing all right, mate. We've just seen three of the more, I would say, entertaining games of the weekend. We had the twists, we had the turns, we had some pouring rain, which was a bit of a difference compared to what we saw in round number one with the heat wave. But big upset happening in this round. But some would
Oof,
say,
yeah.
to a stretch, it wasn't even that much of an upset. But when you hear the stats behind it, it certainly was.
No, it was a it was a pretty big
It
upset,
was very
but we'll
cryptic,
get
wasn't it?
exactly. So look, we'll get into that later on, but let's first start off with the first match of the round, which was France versus Uruguay. Again, 27 points to 12. So France did obviously win at the end of the day, but not the scoreline a lot of us were expecting, to be perfectly honest. I mean, again, we kind of expected the French to be a bit more, I guess, clinical in their chances. And yes, I mean, look, they got 27 points, so it's definitely not. It's not like the game was like close, like we know, five or a 5 point difference, but still, like you kind of expect the French to be within at least I'd say in the 30s or at least the 40s in this game. So yeah, it's just a bit. I don't know. What do you think? Were the French just not clinical in their chances, or do you think Uruguay just really did well to stop them?
I think Uruguay actually showed up and put on a decent performance, which is exactly what we've seen from all those really low ranked sides in the Rugby World Cup. Their first game,
Yeah,
they seemed to come out firing, and I think it was great to see that first try being scored by Freitas in the early stages. It's really made everyone go, hang on, this is the
yeah,
first upset of the Rugby World Cup. But in the end, France, even though they were making a few mistakes, they were still able to get themselves the points that they needed to be able to walk away with the victory and winning it by 15. Yes, they didn't get a bonus point. It's interesting because that's two games in a row now that they haven't
yeah.
received a bonus point for four or more tries. And you wonder how that will shape up as they get further in this competition, whether or not it will impact them up against those bigger sides.
No, I couldn't agree more. And the thing is that I loved it at the end as well with the post match review with the captain where he had his son with him, kind of doing that. So I thought it was pretty cool. But yeah, overall, just I guess I'm not going to say it was an impressive performance by France, but definitely something they can build off going into the next game,
Yeah.
which is obviously the most important thing. So yeah, going into the next game, of course, being New Zealand versus Namibia, a pretty impressive result overall, I'd say, from an All Black perspective. 71 points to three, which is again a high scoreline, kind of what we both expected. Yeah, just tell me what you thought of the game overall. I mean, were you impressed by any players, or did you think there was one individual player that stood out?
First of all, very close to my score prediction. 72 points to three is what I predicted.
Yeah,
71, so close, yet so far away. I think Cam Roigard in this game, he did absolutely phenomenally for the All Blacks, and I think he's proven that he should be that second choice halfback for the ABs going into these next few games with Aaron Smith as the starter. Overall, in the back line, I felt like that McKenzie Roigard combo is something I would like to see again, maybe, just to see if it
yes,
is
I agree.
something that will work nicely. Bowden Barrett, he still likes chipping the ball away to the opposition, doesn't he? But they'll have to work on that because that could cost them later on in the World Cup. But overall, I think it was a relatively solid performance from the All Blacks, but still those disciplinary issues did creep in alongside a few handling errors. The handling was expected, seeing as it was wet conditions, but I'm going to ask you this question, Tim. The front row, Ofa Tuangafasi, Nepo Lolala, a couple of your Blues boys. What went wrong?
Yeah, I just think it was one of those games where I mean, you first have to remember that the All Blacks don't even have their first choice, kind of pairing now with Ethan Agroot obviously having that whole sin bin, I guess, and then obviously Tal Lomax having out. I'm not sure when he's going to come back, but again, yeah, just off and Nepo, just I don't know, they weren't as impressive as you would think, but at the same time, Alpha with that amazing backhand pass, which I was like,
Mm.
geez, this guy's like, geez, Sonny Bill told him that one. But no, I mean, look, overall, I just think they need to definitely improve. That's not, I'm not gonna, overcloud that, but no, I just thought, I don't think it's one of those games where you have to kind of worry about it as much because. You're going against Namibia. That's not really the main part of the game anyway. It's really just more about getting it towards the backs, and I think they did that, in a pretty good fashion. So I think they did pretty well on that front. And yeah, I also agree with you, by the way. Kevin Morgard, that game is now kind of confirmed to me that he is now going to be the second choice. And I do agree that combination, I mean, I've been saying this for a long time, but Roygaard and McKenzie, that is the future combination for the All Blacks, in my opinion, after this World Cup. So that's what I liked about it the most, because that's what they're going to go with after this World Cup. And I think, in Scott Robinson, he's definitely looked at that game and he's like, okay, we have something on the cards there in terms of a good 9-10 solid combo, which we can obviously build on for the future. But just again from a Namibian standpoint, just they weren't able to get as many openings in this game. Again, like you said, the conditions weren't as the best conditions, to say the least. But it was a good game to watch overall. I was impressed with Leicester, by the way, as well. What did you think about Leicester?
I think that him and Mark Talia at the moment, they may be fighting for the same spot, unless, of course, they go Talia out to the right wing and then leave Lester Whananuku on the left side. But then where do you put Will Jordan? Is he going to be fighting for Beauden Barrett's spot? The All Blacks at the moment, to be honest, they've got a lot of players that some are in good form, some of them are there based on their name. And I think that they have to now make a decision in terms of how many of those name players can you get rid of for the sake of the players who are actually playing well. And
so, are you saying that you would get rid of Beauden Barrett to have Leicester, Martellet, and Will Jordan?
I'm thinking that Beauden Barrett used to be very strong off the bench. Why not see if that works again for the All Blacks?
Wow, that's massive. That's a big call. That's a very big call. I think he's been good recently. That's the thing. He
has been at times, but he just gives the ball up a bit too simply, I think. And he doesn't seem to quite gel, I don't think, with the other players in the back line by the looks of it. Just from the last few games, it seems like him and Will Jordan
very nicely with Will Jordan. Exactly.
I think both fighting for the same spot.
Yeah, but that combination is very good. That broke down the Irish defense really when they were playing. That was one of the good combinations they actually had, and that's what. I don't know. It's difficult because if you lose a player like that, then you're solely relying on someone like Mwanga. You can rely on for sure, and obviously you get that extra firepower with Lester Falanku as 11 and Martellet obviously shifting to the 14. But it would be a tough call. It'd be a tough call. And by the way, I actually don't disagree with you. By the way, because you and me have always been on the same page, really, saying that Will Jordan is, in our eyes, the 15 kind of for the future, and that's where he should be placed. But I don't know. It'll be a very bold call if they were to do it within this World Cup. So we'll see what happens. But I will say for now, I'm leaning towards Beauden Barrett staying on the 15, just for what it is. But anyway, we'll move on then towards the next game, which was Samoa versus Chile. Again, a pretty impressive display overall by Samoa, 43 points to 10. Again, I was pretty psyched about this game personally, just because there's a lot of players who I've watched over the years that were obviously playing this one, particularly Stephen Luatua, who he was great and great to see him obviously playing in this one. And what do you think of the game? Because in my opinion, I don't think Chile were as impressive to what I saw from the last one, but they still made a name for themselves. So what do you think?
I think the Samoa, they started slow, didn't they? They weren't really able to find that momentum early, which could be put down to the fact that they didn't play in last week's games of round number 1. But as soon as they started finding that rhythm, that was when Samoa started to get a little bit more dangerous. I actually thought, to be honest, Luatua didn't really do a lot throughout that game, and I feel bad to say that, but he was one of those loose forwards that I think I was looking forward to heavily watching in that game, and we just didn't really get to see him perform the way we would have liked. But that backline, a few of the players in there for the Samoans, I think that they've almost got their combinations right. It's just that question of Leali'ifano at 10, whether or not that is the way to go. Iritara Enery, I felt that he had a good little bit of a stint when he came off the bench in the later stages, but then that could also be because, of course, Chile started to tire just that little bit more. But Samoa, at the end of the day, bonus point win, exactly how you want to start your Rugby World Cup, and now going head-to-head in next week's game, they will be facing Los Pumas, which could be quite a telling fixture.
I have a funny feeling that, maybe I'm wrong in saying this, by the way, guys, but I think because they were facing Chile, that's the reason why they started with Christian Leali'ifano. But I believe for the following fixtures now, they're actually going to go with Lima Samoa. I just think he's made for these big game occasions, and I think that they're going to probably make that switch. I could be wrong because he had actually a pretty good game, but I just think it's one of those where I can definitely see it happening. Yeah, again, we'll move on then towards the next game. It was Wales versus Portugal. This, to be completely fair to us, we were definitely on the wrong scale. We both said this would be a high scoring game in terms of what it is. Again, I did give props towards Portugal because I kind of knew about them beforehand, and they were definitely a team which could, I don't know, I heard a lot about, and I was like, kind of rooting for him secretly. But yeah, 28 points to 9. That's like well, no, 8. Sorry, 28 points to 8, which is I don't know. What do you think about it? Because this is actually one of the few games I didn't actually get to see live. So I only saw the highlights for this game in particular. So I don't have as much of I guess, a scope in terms of the whole entire game. So what did you think about it?
I mean, for a team that you were secretly rooting for, you certainly put a lot of points against them throughout our overall Rugby World Cup predictions, that is for sure. But Portugal started this match extremely well, and they were pushing Wales. It just seemed to be, as the game wore on, that momentum started to fade in the Welsh, and they're managing to get themselves that another bonus point win, which at the time, we didn't realise how crucial it could be. But after seeing one of the results later on in that group, maybe it could be just enough to either keep them first or get them in second. But yeah, overall, Portugal, I feel like their structure of the backline, people in our chat, they were saying, like, Portugal are entertaining to watch. They actually play very nice rugby in terms of moving it through their hands. Lewis Rees-Zammit scoring the first try of the match and doing the Ronaldo Sue as well in front of the Portuguese fans. He's brave, isn't he? That's a way to annoy a whole nation. But yeah, Wales in the end getting themselves the win. Lee Halfpenny, I felt, played very well for the Welsh in that game as well. And it's that question of, will they go with Williams in the big matches now, or will they give Lee Halfpenny a crack? I still think Williams because of that height factor.
Yeah, I was going to say, Williams, that's exactly what I was going to say. I think the high ball is just so important. It's so important in the Rugby World Cup, and I think, he has it nailed down. So I think they're going to probably go with Williams. But again, this was another interview which I saw after the post-match interview, and I thought it was pretty good actually from the captain because he's talking about how obviously how a lot of the team are kind of really just aren't they're unprofessional players, kind of playing at an amateur level, and they're able to kind of get to this stage, which is remarkable in the sense, and they're just they're kind of happy to kind of be in that, or just kind of keep the game at a lower score, to say at least, compared to what most people would have predicted. But just really impressed by them, and hope to see more, of course, as the competition goes on. But again, we'll go into the next game, which was Ireland versus Tonga. It was one of those games actually where, I'll be honest, I actually thought Tonga actually played pretty well for the opening, I'd say 25 minutes. They actually did pretty well to kind of, I'm not saying contain, but to kind of reduce the scoreline. Does that make sense? Because, again, there were a few chances actually where Ireland, I think, was it Porter? I think it was Porter who had an opportunity where he scored a try, but it actually got reversed. So it was they had chances, but Tonga were kind of staying in it because of those kind of decisions then. And but of course, Ireland just wiped the floor. And the big thing that came out of this game really was Johnny Sexton, now being the all-time point scorer for Ireland in Rugby World Cup, which is credit to him because he is a sensational player. And I mean, he's 38 years old now, right? I think he's maybe even older. I mean, maybe he's 40. I have no clue, but but he's just he's a great player, and I was happy for him. And you even said at halftime, you kind of just got a water, kind of a shower, and just got to watch the sidelines for the rest of the game. So that must have been good from his perspective. But what do you think? Because there's actually a lot of other players who stood out in this game. So what do you think overall?
Yep, Bundy, our key, keeping his great form, heading into the game next week up against South Africa. And I think the big thing for Ireland is they took a risk in playing their, I guess what some people would call their strongest team in this game up against Tonga. They didn't want to underestimate the Tongans, of course, but playing your strongest side in this type of game is asking for injuries. And luckily for Ireland, I don't believe they've suffered too many overall. Tyke Byrne, he's in some sensational form, whether he's in the loose forward trio or in the locks. He's going to be one to watch out for. And I'm very curious to see what kind of lineup they go with next week up against South Africa now that they have so many players in form, because, they like to keep their starting side fresh. They like to keep them playing week after week to build that momentum. And I think the people that I've heard talking about it, they're saying, is it going to backfire for the Irish because of so many games back to back to back over a short period of time? And the last thing they want to lose is Johnny Sexton. But I believe that Ireland, they just seem to be conditioned to be able to do this week after week.
Exactly.
And just be able to continue that momentum. Like you mentioned, Tonga, reasonable effort from them, seeing as it was their first game of the Rugby World Cup. I'd like to think that up against Romania, we're going to see a Tongan side really start to find their rhythm. The sad thing is that that wasn't their first game, because if it was, I feel like some of these other games up against other Pool B sides would have been that little bit closer. But overall, Ireland, very good performance. Johnny Sexton, big congratulations to him. He's not just scoring tries, he's setting them up 3 now in the Rugby World Cup for that man. And certainly deserves it. Yes, people, some don't like him, but you can't help but respect what he's been able to do for Ireland over the last little while. And also the fact that he's been able to evolve his game to now match that style that Ireland are currently playing, and just be that first choice 10 that you don't want to lose.
Yeah, no, he's a cog for what Ireland do in terms of that back line, and he allows them to kind of move around and create those plays, for the 9 or even to the back lines, to the wings, I mean. So, he had a really good game, and just if he's on form, then Ireland is definitely going to be ticking and obviously going straight towards that try line. But again, I do want to point out that I thought Charles Piutau, I thought it was pretty, that side step he had earlier on in the game. He just sent, I can't remember what player it was, but he just sent the player, it was like a little side step. I was like, ooh.
I think he beat Hugo Keenan in about 4 one-on-ones.
That's what it was. Exactly. And then Ireland realized, okay, guys, he's going to keep doing this to us, so let's have 3-on-1. And then they finally won the ball from the breakdown against him. So, they found out how to stop him, which is a good thing to do. But and also pretty happy for what's his name, Vita got the first try obviously for Tonga as well. So that was kind of a cool moment for him. But again, we'll move on then from that game towards the South Africa Romania one. Another kind of a large scoreline to say the least, even larger than the last one, which is 76 points to 0. Again, it was. I couldn't believe what I was watching at the same time, because we even remember. It's one of those where the Boks, in a weird way, they actually made a lot of their substitutions correctly at the point of times, because as soon as the substitutes made an immediate impact. And going into the first half to start off with, they did pretty well to get a few tries early on in this game. I can't even remember who got the first one. Was it wasn't Grant Williams?
Got himself.
That's what it was. Yeah, he got because obviously he was going for a hat trick again, and then I don't think he got it, if I'm not mistaken. But of course, but
snuck it at the
end. Did he get it?
Yeah, 24 minutes in, he was able to get the third try.
Okay. I wasn't sure if he got it or not, because I know Pimpy got his hat trick, but there were so many tries, guys. I just couldn't keep track. It was one of those where I was like, oh my gosh. And even it was raining for a bit of the game, which is a bit odd, and it kind of stopped afterwards. But again, Romania they weren't able to kind of, muster up a few opportunities in this. And whenever they did, the Boks just turned over quickly and obviously just set up the runs and go down the wings. But what do you think of this game? Because again, you did say, and we both believed, maybe Andre Esterhuizen and Kenny Moody would have a big impact in this game, but there weren't really the names that kind of stood out. It was really more kind of like the wingers in this sense. So what do you think overall?
I think Romania, they couldn't quite get their backline firing the way that they did in the game up against Ireland. I think that was down to the pressure the Springboks would put in Valvasa under. But South Africa overall, I feel like even though they won this game by quite a confident margin, they'll still learn things about this game. Of course, playing the 4 halfbacks was always going to be a risk, but it seems like one that didn't work too badly throughout this game. But it's that big question of whether or not it can work up against the top sides around the world as well. I'm going to ask you a bit of a question, Tim, and I'm going to give you my opinion on it afterwards. What did you think of the backline overall for this game for the South Africans? Did you notice a trend that was happening throughout the contest?
Well, if you're saying a trend in terms of the scrum halves, in terms of what they were doing in that sense, I don't know, like a trend. That's a weird. Well, I guess they were playing through the scrum halves pretty nicely. As soon as Flat Foot came on, he was kind of seen as a playmaker. Same as Reinach, I guess. Grant Williams' try was pretty impressive, but I don't know. What was the trend that you spotted that I can't think of at the moment?
Well, Tim, I thought the Springboks backline, and I learned that this is actually quite a popular opinion in this case,
Okay.
individuals throughout that game up against Romania, very selfish backline. And
Oh,
I
okay.
don't like
Okay.
being the one who says it because normally people go, "You're from New Zealand, shut your mouth." But
No, 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 no.
in
No.
this
You are
case,
right.
there were
It's
a lot of players who were playing for themselves rather than the team. And I feel like that is a trait that when the coaches see that, straight away that would be a red flag for me because you look through at what happened in this game. Makazole Mapimpi, he was never going to be passing the ball much throughout this game because he knows at the moment Kurtley Arinsa and Cheslin Colby are both going for his jersey. So he got himself the
yeah.
hat trick. He was one of the players who I think I saw pass once throughout the 80 minutes. Kobus Reinach, don't get me wrong, brilliant player, got himself the hat trick. Wouldn't mind if he passed the ball out the back line every once in a while. Damien Valimza, boy, that man loves the ball, doesn't he? He wasn't giving it up to anyone. But it was weird to watch, and I noticed the trend, and I was like, boys, you're a team, not
Okay.
like.
What I would say though is that for all those free players, I actually don't think like they were as like selfish as you're saying. I think there was one player you haven't even mentioned who I would say was probably
I
selfish.
was getting there.
Yeah, like he's the one player I actually would say had the most selfish play in the whole game. But for the players you've mentioned, I don't really think they were selfish. It was because they're built. I mean, from Williamson, for example, like the two tries he had. I mean, he sidestepped his way through the first one, and that's just individual brilliance. That's not really like selfishness. He just got by himself there. The second one was kind of the same thing. So I don't think Williams says in that conversation. I can understand Reineck because Reinnick's like even in his first try, he went obviously through himself, for the scrum. He could have passed obviously wide, so that I understand. But at the same time, it's a scrum half play. So in my mind, I'm always going to be like in favor of going for that kind of try. But I understand obviously there's a selfish element to that. Again with Reinnick's second try, I mean he went straight through. That was just a clean breakthrough. So that's not really. I don't really see anything in that one. The
I think
third
the
one, I
problem
forget.
is you're looking at the
What's the
times
first?
that they worked, and you're looking at the times that they scored tries, rather than looking at the times that they
But
blew
that's what
the
I'm saying. Like
opportunity
from a try
to be able to
perspective, like
score.
even like Mpimpy's ones, like there wasn't really selfish because they obviously just found him in the end corners for most of the time. But I do agree with you with Mpimpy. Out of the bunch, he's probably the most. It's like you said. It's kind of what you said already. Like where he wasn't looking to pass the ball, he was just looking to receive to obviously score the try.
So I
But yeah,
assume
no,
Moody is the one that you were going
yeah,
to say.
it was that chance. I mean, they had a great build-up play. Moody, I think, was it Moody who broke through? I think it was Moody who broke through, and then he did. Oh, to credit him, he did pretty well in that sense. But again, he had a ton of time under his belt, and then he looked both ways. I believe. I think he had like was it Flap the Kirk? Or at least someone he had someone on his right. I can't remember. Maybe it was Flap the Kirk. Maybe it was Jenny Hendrickson. I can't remember who it was, but he had a clear. I think it was Jenny Hendrickson, if I'm not mistaken. And he could have literally just done a pass to him. He would have gone straight through underneath the post, easy. But no, he decided to go. Like this is where I didn't even understand it because there's a player right next to him, and he decided to do like a brush over him. And again, like you're not going to brush over a player who's right in front of you. Like it was a bit of a weird one. And again, he did eventually find, I think, Willie LaRue with a nice pass. But again, he kind of ruined it already with not passing the ball earlier on. So that was probably the most selfish play out of the whole game. But again, it's one of those where I guess I wouldn't be too caught on that personally. It's like, again, you're not expecting you're allowed to do that in that kind of game. I think you can have those moments, but yeah, no. Obviously, he should have passed. I'm not denying that. But again, you just need to. Yeah, it would have been nice to obviously go for a higher score line. But no, look, as a Bulk fan, guys, I was very happy with the result overall, and it's something which I guess we expected at the end of the day. It's not really surprising at all. But again, it's interesting to see what will happen, of course, because the next game is the Ireland game. But we'll talk a lot more about that, of course, in the preview for the next one. But again, let's go to the big game here now, which is probably the one we're going to talk about the most. Australia, Fiji. Of course, Fiji did win 22 points to 15, but oh my word, I just couldn't believe it because it's in a weird way. It's not a way in which I would consider Fiji winning the game because they won the game through kicks, and then obviously they had that breakthrough try through gosh. I can't even think of his name now. You're gonna have to help me here.
Tui.
Joshua Tuiasofa, yeah, yeah. So it was one of those. It was just, I don't know. In a weird way, I was happy that they won, but it wasn't like, what was it tense? Like it didn't feel tense to me. I as much as it should have. Is that weird to say it? Like I was more tense in the Wales Fiji game than this game because I felt like Fiji were gonna win anyway. When the scoreline was like 17-8, I think it was something around there. I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, Fiji have this. They're actually gonna win this. But for that other game, I was like, oh, Fiji could do it. So it was like it just felt more tense. I was like, oh my gosh, something could happen here. But no, I mean, what do you think about the game overall? Because again, we were obviously both happy that the Fijians won.
I think Fiji showed a lot of maturity in the way that they played that game because normally telling a Fijian side to go for 3-pointers, they normally don't want to.
Yeah,
They'd rather go for the
exactly.
corner. Kuravuli, I've been asking for it for about 4 weeks for that man to start at 9. I feel like we just saw exactly why he should be that starting 9. His kicking accuracy was phenomenal. And that's the big difference. Getting those threes over rather than missing them early in a game just applies that much more pressure to your opposition. And the Australians, they were never out of this game because there was always that chance of the draw coming right at the end of the contest, which would have completely thrown Pool C all over the place. But yeah, just Kuravuli, very good performance from him. Tuisova ended up with man of the match after being able to get through. And a little bit similar to what we saw in the game between South Africa and Romania, with the South Africans shutting down Valvasa. I noticed that Carter Gordon, they were looking to put a little bit of extra pressure on him, knowing that maybe he would start to crumble in that case. But overall for the Wallabies, big talking point, 18 penalties conceded throughout that game. Even conceding 9, you're having a bit of a rough day disciplinary-wise. But for the Wallabies to concede the full 18, not a single yellow card?
No, they didn't. I don't think they gave a yellow because I'm just thinking that with the amount of penalties that Fiji got, I thought like there may have been a yellow for the amount they gave, but no. But no, I mean, even like Australia, I mean, I saw there's obviously not a lot of controversy because again, it would have been more controversial if they actually won the game with it. But that try they scored, it was a great kick by the way with Nick White. I mean, it was a brilliant kick. Obviously go for the 50-22, but then I think it was Nora Kotawasi you noticed that quick play, or was it Vinivalu? I can't remember. It was one of the two who were out. It was him. Okay, so he passed it obviously towards Vinivalu and he scored the try. I mean, it's a clever play, but again, there was a lot of things saying that, oh, maybe he was out. Like when he was, there's something, I don't know. I think it was fine. But there's like a bit of controversy around it. It was like, okay, well, I think it's fine if they allowed it. But yeah, again, just very happy for Fiji, of course. And this does obviously set up that big game. Wales and Australia obviously going into the next round. But again, well, I mean, is there anything else you want to discuss on that front, on that game before we go into the last one?
I think Australia, their next game up against Wales is going to be crucial because they've gone from being the side in their last game in the slight box seat because Fiji, it was a must-win for them up against the Australians. Now Australia are in a must-win game up against the Fijians to be able to keep their hopes of making it through to the quarterfinals alive. But I don't think that they'll be too disappointed. Like, yes, don't get me wrong, they've lost to Fiji for the first time in 69 years. That's quite a long time.
Crazy.
But I almost couldn't believe it when I heard that. I feel like those two sides, maybe because we've watched them in Super Rugby Pacific, seeing the Fiji and Drua get upsets over the Aussie sides a few times, it just doesn't feel like it was that big in terms of that. And also because I felt like Fiji coming into that game, like, I mean, I predicted them to win. I think you predicted
them
we to get the victory as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But
that's what I'm saying. It didn't feel like it didn't feel like one of those where I was astounded by what happened.
Yeah.
Is that
and they looked like the better side from the get-go, really. They were controlling the game.
Exactly.
And also that constant penalty count against the Australians just never really allowed them back into it. But even with that, they still had moments where near the end it seemed like, oh, are the Aussies about to come back? Suliasi Vunivalu doing well coming off the bench for the Aussies. But yeah, the handling throughout this World Cup at the moment from a majority of sides has been their downfall. And that probably transitions us perfectly to this game between England and Japan. About 25 handling errors between the two teams.
Oh, you should have seen me. I was just so upset with Japan. I was like, they had it. Look, guys, you may not agree with me, but I think Japan had the opportunity to win this game. I actually do think they had the opportunity to win this game, but their handling errors is what let them down. I actually think that they're like, how do I say this? Like they're the more progressive team. They are the ones getting it, like making the I guess they're the ones pressuring England. Does that make sense? Like they were the ones like
Yeah.
making England try to force these errors. And they did it at times. They actually did pretty well in that sense, and they obviously got the ball a few times with the breakdown as well through Kazuki Himeno. But again, whenever they had the attacking play, it is like the one that I was screaming when it happened was when they had that opportunity finally in the England zone. I think it was near enough to the 22. And of course, they passed it off, of course, to I think it was Suzuki who passed it out towards, I can't remember what player, but he drops it. And I was like, oh my gosh. I was like, what are you doing? Like, you just needed like a few more plays to get at least an advantage from this. And yeah, I mean, that's what let them down. Because again, England, to their credit, even their first try, it was a giveaway from Japan. Like they literally gave the ball to Japan for that, and it was like they're like their own enemy, really, in that kind of in that sense. Gosh, I'm trying to think of anything else. Yeah, no, they
I
just
think that England still need credit in that game though, because they were able to get themselves those 4 tries. But Japan, like you said, those handling errors were just hurting them at the most opportune times for them to be able to get back into the game. Was when their hands let them down the most. And
yeah, I agree.
Lewis Ludlam, I felt like he was pretty strong for the English.
No, he was great. He did pretty well for them actually in the game.
Yeah, it's one of those ones that people have been a little bit harsh on England, saying like, oh, the games haven't been that flash, but they're sitting top of the pool. And as long as they're there when it gets to the playoff games,
yeah,
that's the main thing. But yeah, Japan, like you said, you want to see them do well. They are the underdogs that always manage to rise up for World Cup competitions. But it reminded me of that Pacific Nations Cup game between Samoa and Japan, the one where they dropped the ball about 12 times or something along those lines. Yeah. But those two sides will be playing off soon. So a little bit of excitement there, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And it just, I don't know, like even that, like, the Courtney Lawes try. I mean, it's one of those like when it happened, I was like, oh, it's going to be a try because it came off the face. But it's just, I was like, why? Like the first 2 tries I scored, I was like, it just felt like it wasn't a give. Like the first try was definitely a giveaway. The second try was just more of a, what can you do really? England obviously took advantage, and Courtney Lawes was very smart in that case, obviously, and what he did. But no, that third try I thought was very impressive from George Ford, obviously with the left boot, passed it towards Freddie Stewart. I thought that was a great try actually. But and then obviously he was at Joe Marchant, of course, finished it off. So obviously happy for him in that sense. But yeah, and I think with that try, obviously still the bonus point as well, which was that's even better from an English standpoint. So yeah, overall, I think England. It's weird. Like I can't say it was a dominant display, but they did everything right to get the bonus point. Does that make sense? Like I can't say it was dominant, but they did everything they needed to do to get the bonus points. So yeah, fair play to them, of course, and yeah, just feel a bit of I guess I'm lucky, I guess for Japan, but at the same time, they were their own enemy in this game with the amount of handling errors they had in this game. But yeah, again, we're gonna leave it there, guys. Obviously, just hope you guys obviously enjoy this review. Let us know in the comments what you guys think in terms of all the games. Actually, you know what? Before we actually send off this video, we do have to give you guys our player of the round, our team of the round, and the surprising player that we didn't think would stand out in this one. So, do you want to go first in this one, or do you want me to go first?
I'll allow you to go first. You did go first last time. I was wondering if we were doing it this week. I was waiting. I was thinking, I got
this is a good segment.
This
is a good segment to do each round. I like this. Yeah, I guess in terms of can't think of the player at the moment right now in terms of the player of the round. I'd say the team of the round, you got to give it to Fiji. I just think that's. I'm not saying it's an obvious one, but I just think that they just impressed me the most in terms of getting that. Like you said, they're just very smart with how they won the game, obviously for penalties, and not the way you would think they would win. So as a team collective, I thought that they definitely were seen as my team of the round in this competition. Of course, as well in that round, just for causing the one upset which we thought were on the cards. I guess in terms of the surprising player, the player kind of you just didn't think would stand out but did. Gosh. Oh, I mean, is it too obvious? I think you just got to say it. It's Cam Morgan. I think Cam Morgan was probably the one that you didn't think would stand out, but he definitely took his opportunity and yeah, made the most of it. So yeah, he probably would be the player I'd say that was surprising, but you know he definitely had it in him, and yeah, he showcased that. But yeah, I guess in terms of the player of the round, oh, that's a tough one. That's the thing. Like, when I look back at the matches, like I wouldn't even say see. Normally, I would go with something like, "Oh, you go with the team. It's the team of the round." But Fiji, I don't know. I'm not feeling like they had the player of the round in that sense. I'm looking over the games now. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Like you know what? I'd actually say Johnny Sexton. I'm going to say Johnny Sexton is my player of the round, just because I think for him to become Ireland's all-time top scorer, just point scorer, it's just it's a pretty big achievement, and he was pretty good throughout the game in terms of that first half. So I just want to kind of give him credit in that sense. So yeah, he was my player of the round.
Okay, fair enough. For myself, team of the round, I'm going Uruguay. A little bit of a plot twist there, but that's because you've got Fiji, so I thought we better not roast Fiji.
It's going to be different. I like that.
Mm-hmm. So Uruguay, team that definitely showed up in that game up against France and pushed them a lot more than people anticipated. Managed to get themselves, I'd say, staying in the contest for about 60 minutes until France started getting that little bit of momentum near the end. Player who I didn't expect to play well, but did play well. That's a bit of a weird statement, isn't it? Because it's kind of like saying, who's someone you think is bad but might go well in this round? God. So I feel like you don't want to win that award because you want to be considered as the player of the round, don't you? But who would I go with? I'll go Lewis Ludlam as a player, even though I thought that he would go well here. But I felt like he was one of those players that there was a lot of pressure on him because of all the red cards that England keep getting for themselves. But swap that. Sorry, Ludlam, you're getting kicked out. Ben Earls. Ben Earls, number 7. He was much better in the loose full tray than Ludlam today, so I go with Ben Earls.
I was going to say, he's a player you could even say is one of the players of the round, I would even argue. But
they're too similar in terms of the questions, aren't they, in terms of the player of the round and the non...
I feel like the way you can think about it is like where if you get named in that category of you weren't thought of as a player who would stand out, and you win, then you're now in that category where you can be announced as a player of the round, like for the future. Does that make sense? That's kind of the way I see it.
I think the reasoning behind Ben Earl is because not many people know him. Is why I've got him as my.
No, I like it. I like it a lot. Yeah, it's a good shout.
Yeah. And then player of the round. Pretty tricky. I mean, I look at that South African game and look at some of the players who stepped up, but then I also look at, maybe I'm just too caught up in this whole individualistic play, if that's a word, but I would say, I'll probably go Simeone Kuravuli, to be honest, just because he was one of those ones that I thought would do well, and he did do well. I was sad when he didn't get man of the match, but I could understand why they gave it to Joshua Tuisova, but I'd go Kuravuli because for Fiji, that was the difference maker, getting those 3-pointers, putting the Aussies under pressure, and then walking away with their first victory of the World Cup.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Great shout. And by the way, guys, let us know in the comments what you think in terms of your player of the round, in terms of your surprise, just the team you thought was the best in this round, and really the surprise player who really just stood out in this round overall. But yeah, guys, definitely love the video, guys. Subscribe to our channel, and yeah, we'll see you guys next time.